Welcome to the Learning Lounge. I am Dr. Joel Gardner, and today I'm with Sonya Overstreet. And so we'll talk a little bit more about Sonya and her background. But learning, instructional design, and training are fast-growing fields, as you know, and especially within workplace settings. But the role of a learning professional is so much more than just designing and delivering training or instruction or making PowerPoints. So today we're talking with Sonya Overstreet, who has a lot of experience in these matters. Sonya is a learning and development manager at LEDEC. She's also a certified performance technologist with over 20 years of experience in a lot of fields: engineering, performance improvement, workplace learning, and also has a master's degree of instructional design and performance technology from here at Franklin University, which I enjoyed having you in some of the classes that I taught. So welcome. It's really exciting to have you here.
Thank you so much, Joel. I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So one of the challenges that we've kind of talked about in the past for learning professionals is that we often face people putting our roles into kind of a box. You know, they put us into this training. They're the training people. What are some of your strategies for getting around this or kind of working against this sort of preconceived notion?
Yes. So from experience, what I find is that box is typically training by PowerPoint. And it happens in a lot of industries, and particularly the technical industries that I've been in. The biggest strategy that I employ to get out of that box is to start making relationships with my colleagues and to understand the business. So once I understand the business, what they're doing, I can provide additional solutions from my background as a certified performance technologist that they haven't thought of before. For instance, in the engineering firms that I worked at, it was, of course, training by PowerPoint with a subject matter expert. So when I talk to them, it's like, well, how about we do things a little bit different? Not improve, but maybe we can enhance some of the things that we're doing by then creating infographics for takeaways after the training. Or how about we do short videos to demo some of the new technology in our engineering design software. So those are some of the things. Is really starting to develop relationships with my partners so that they can understand that I can bring more to the table than just training by PowerPoint. Okay,
but so it sounds like kind of two big pieces. Build a relationship, and also, but you said kind of act as a business partner.
Yes.
Right? So that's the first piece. And then the other part is once you have that relationship, you can start to build enhancements in and sort of expand what you're doing. But how do you go about that building relationships part? Like, to me, that's the mystery. How can you really demonstrate that you're a partner with them and able to help with the goal of helping them meet their goals?
Well, for me, I really look at it as an internal consultant with my colleagues. And it kind of builds on my professional mantra, which my professional mantra is learning and development is not just training, it's performance improvement. And I look at it as taking it to the next step and providing consulting services to my partners and saying, okay, how can we develop this relationship? And the first step is really understanding their business and having that business acumen to say, okay, in production, whether you're in an engineering firm or now where I'm working now is industrial services, we have our employees on the floor. I need to learn that business. I need to understand what they do. I'm not going to do those tasks, but I need to be a partner with them and understand their business so that they can have trust in my professional expertise and then it's a benefit to them. So that's how I start to build that relationship.
Very good. So you have to know their business.
Yes.
Now, the other thing that you may have used these words just now, but a term that I've heard you use before is adding value.
Yes.
So it seems like you're not just focused on being, this sort of reactive note taker and just like checking the box. Okay, you want me to do that? Okay, I'll check the box. We'll do our training with the PowerPoint. But it's more about really understanding what their needs are and coming up with solutions that fulfill the needs, even if it's not a training solution necessarily, but it could be some other type of solution. At least we've talked about this before. What are maybe some examples of where you've done that, where you've kind of used that kind of approach?
Correct. So with me, adding value is one of the most important things. And you add value by connecting your learning and development to the business goals. And everything that I do in my learning and development department, anything that we push out, it has to align with the business objectives. And we could do that in a couple of different ways. And I think you mentioned that it doesn't always have to be face-to-face training. So Some examples of adding value is when I was at one particular organization, I partnered with our travel team, and there were some instances where we weren't charging the customer for the travel that our folks were doing on their behalf, which was contractual. We were to charge them. But because of the lapse in documentation, we weren't doing that. So what I did was help design a travel request form so that we can document when people were out on training, when people were out on the site, what expenses they were incurring, so that we're able to then charge the customer for that.
Right.
And that was a huge savings, because for the first 30 days, we were able to bill the customer over $30,000 that we weren't doing before. And it wasn't training. It was a simple, we designed a form. And then we did do some training, but it was micro-learning. We just had them in for a quick 30 minutes, like donuts, and understand the new form. And after that, we were able to recapture that money.
Which is so amazing. So over time, right, that adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, even in a year that you're saving for the company. The thing that's amazing about that example is that this is not training, right?
Nope.
There was a training component involved with it, but the solution was actually process-oriented or documentation-oriented. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
And it ties back to performance improvement. Yes, there may be a learning element, but that's not the only element to decrease a gap in an organization. So you have the training. You can have a training component. You can have infographics, job aids. There's a lot of solutions that you can provide to an organization where it's not just a PowerPoint, and that gets you out of that proverbial training by PowerPoint box.
Right. Love it. Okay, so maybe we can go back a little bit, because earlier you were talking about your professional mantra, and to me it sounded very compelling and interesting.
Yep.
But what I would like to know is so maybe restate that, just to kind of refresh. But then how did you come up with this? Like, what was your way of coming at this, and how do you use this professional mantra?
Okay, so again, my professional mantra is learning and development is not just training; it's performance improvement. And when I started. With the position that I had at an engineering services firm, I was building their first ever learning and development department. Okay. So talking to some folks, doing that needs analysis the first couple of months, I started to figure out that, yes, they only see training by PowerPoint. So I have to come at this a little bit of a different way, because there's a lot of things that I could help with. But if they're still looking at training just as a PowerPoint, I'm not going to be able to add the value that I want to.
Right.
And that they hired me to do. So when I really sat down and started to consider what does learning and development mean to me personally, and a lot of it did come from when I was doing the master's program here at Franklin and understanding that performance improvement piece. So when I stopped to think about it, and fortunately my team was learning and development. My team was not called training. So that was a good benefit. So I looked at it and said, okay, how can I combine the two? And knowing that I don't want to do just training, there's more to it than that. So then I just combined them and said, learning and development is not just training. I wanted people to understand that training could be a component. I didn't want to just totally forget about training because I thought that would probably alienate a lot of people. Yeah. So just let them know that learning and development is not just training, it's performance improvement. So there's a lot of other things in that performance improvement piece that I can expound upon, but I have to let them know that first.
Right. So you communicate. I imagine this is something you say all the time, probably to yourself, but especially to your partners and the people you're working with.
I do. I say that all the time, and I'll even tell them, I'm going to say this all the time. So remember. And in my current position, when I presented to our executive management team, I wanted them to understand my philosophy behind it. And my mantra was, one of the first slides is like, here's what I believe. Here's how I approach learning and development in an organization.
Awesome. Okay. So let's kind of go back to this idea of adding value. So you've given some examples of how you may have done this in the past, but what if there's a new learning professional who comes into an organization, they're kind of getting their feet wet, as it were. How would you recommend, what would you recommend to this new professional for adding value in the organization that they serve?
I think the best way to do that, especially when you're new to the industry and you're coming in, maybe you've just graduated and you have your first job, is to just really stop and consider the business and understand the organization that you're working for. Have a pretty good understanding of the product or service they produce. Have a good understanding of the different departments within that organization, so that you can start having that partnership with them. Because I don't believe you can add value if you have strained or non-existent relationships with your business partners, with your colleagues inside the organization. And when you have those relationships, you build that trust, and then you're able to give them and offer them additional solutions that they may not have thought of before. As a new professional, you're probably going to see that a lot of times it's going to be, hey, can you develop this training for me? And typically people will come to me and say, hey, Sonya, can you develop this training? I said, yes, but can we have a conversation first? And then just start to talk to them. I think the biggest thing is just talking. If you talk to them, you'll start to understand, and they'll start to share with you some of the things that's going on in their organization, their group, or their team. And then you can start to have a little bit of a better idea of how you can add incremental value along the way. And you're not going to hit it out of the park the first time. So you're not going to, that first project that you get, you're not going to be able to do all the things we get trained on in school, during your educational process. But you can start adding incremental value.
Very cool.
Yep.
That's a good phrase, adding incremental value.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like it really is build those relationships, understand the business as much as possible, and then see how you can start to insert some of your skills and abilities to add value to their organization. Very cool.
An example could be that, again, somebody would ask, hey, Sonya, can you do this training? And let's say in this case, a training is warranted, like a face-to-face, but maybe like in the technical space, yes, face-to-face was going to be very important, but how about we take the introduction to those technical concepts, which are repeated over and over again, and convert that to e-learning. So that's adding value. So you're cutting down on people's time away from their desk, and providing some e-learning where they could do it on a mobile device. We would have that in another organization that I was at. Or, face-to-face is great. Instead of printing out the PowerPoint slides for them, how about we make a comprehensive job aid or infographic so that they can have that takeaway.
And then they know what to do in real time. They know exactly. That's great. Love it. Okay, so one of the things that we were talking about just before we started here was that you have actually built in two different organizations, you've built two learning and development organizations within those organizations. So talk about how you did that, or what do you do when you have to build these learning organizations? What are the strategies you've used, and maybe some examples of how you've approached it at these different organizations?
Sure. So the position I'm in now, I am building the learning and development group. It had been dormant for about 2 years.
Okay.
So the first thing is always go back to that mantra. Learning and development is not just training, it's performance improvement. And then tying that mantra, my personal professional mantra, to the business goals of the organization. So making sure that those are linked. And it's typically they're always going to be linked. So then I look at, first thing I did with working with LEADAC the first couple of months is just travel around, visit people. We have about 45 different sites where our people are. So they're on site with our customer, traveling around, meeting them, understanding what they do, talking to them, introducing myself. And it was just a conversation. It was just an introduction. I didn't want to pour down learning on them just yet. I wanted to understand what they do, because what one group does in one facility, the work can be a little bit the same, but the customer's different, the environment's different, and I want to make sure that if I produce something, it can be sustained in those different environments. So number one, just traveling, talking to people. And then what I noticed is that because we are dispersed, what I wanted to make sure that I did, tying it to my mantra, to the business goals, is to develop a learning culture. And I did that. I partnered with our marketing team and actually designed a logo for my learning and development group. And it is around creating a shared learning partnership. to make sure that we all understand that to have a learning culture, we all have to participate in it. So me, as learning and development, I have a responsibility to help empower, provide resources to our employees, to provide those opportunities.
Right.
The managers have a responsibility to motivate their employees, to make sure their employees have time for learning and development. And each individual employee will be a learner, and they have a responsibility to apply, to go out and to be full participants in the learning opportunities that we have for them. And this will create a huge shared learning culture. So it's not just my responsibility, it's not just the manager's responsibility, but we all have a responsibility. And even our individual workers, they have a responsibility to their own development.
I think this is such an important. So if you even just take a step back in life, right? In life, we all have so the only person that's responsible for you ultimately is you.
Exactly.
Right. So you have to take total responsibility for your own development, growth, your own career, your own family, whatever it is. You have to take total responsibility.
Yes.
And I'm not just pointing to you, like you, Sonya, but same for me, same for anybody else, right? And some people, by the way our schools might be structured, or our culture might put that responsibility on other people. I'm like, I never learned that in school. Well, how come I never learned that? Well, it's your responsibility. If you want to learn something, the opportunities are endless.
Yes.
We have endless opportunities to learn. Mounds of information available at our fingertips, right? So that's critical. So I love that you've included that in your into this discussion here.
And that's important because a lot of times things have changed in all the industries. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, the employer was responsible for everything for an employee, but we have so many different options now. So it's for each individual person to say, I am going to own my career. I am going to own my development. So when I'm in an organization that has a learning and development department, and I'm that manager, I'm going to say, okay, you as my colleague, you're going to own your development, but I'm going to help you do that. I am going to point you to resources. I'm going to make sure that the content that my group produces is accurate. It is relevant to helping you do your job better and to remove obstacles from you. But I can't do that alone. And you know that I can't make anybody learn. You have to want to learn. I can put things in front of you to make sure that it's accurate, it's consistent, it's of high quality. But if you don't apply, you're never going to learn. So that's why it's important to have that shared learning partnership, because you can partner with me and I can partner with you, and we can all develop together.
Right. And I love that you referred back to 20 or 30 or even 40 or 50 years ago. That may have been the case then, that it's like, okay, I'm going to be at this organization for 40 years of my life, and so I'm going to follow whatever procedures they tell me to follow. It's a different world now, though.
Yes.
That's the industrial model, right? But that's gone. That's gone. We're in the globalization, and the technology that we have now has accelerated things so quickly, and it's made it so that we really are interchangeable little parts within an organization where we have to be able to move to another organization. So we have to take total responsibility for our own learning and development. Fascinating.
And I think right now you always hear that phrase, to be a continuous improvement, be a constant learner. And I think that's true. That really is true now, because from month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year, there's so many different things that happen in organizations, so many different technology improvements, competitors in the market, that we all have to continue to learn and grow together. And we have to have that partnership, because you're only as good as your weakest link, right? So if we have those too many weak links, that the organization is not going to survive. Right. So if we can partner together to make everybody stronger, then I think we have a better chance.
Very good. Excellent. Okay. Well, Sonya, it has been awesome having you on the podcast today, the Learning Lounge. So hope you have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Thanks, Sonya.
Thanks.